Hello everyone, this is Brian. Welcome back. This is my 40th Floss 2 video and it is December 31st, 2018 and I thought it was a good opportunity to do a year in review. So I'm going to review everything that I have done stitching wise for the year of 2018. But first of all, I want to welcome you. If you are new to my channel, welcome. I hope that you enjoy the things that I have to share with you. If you're returning, thank you so much for spending time with me. Thank you for all of your likes. Thank you for subscribing to my channel. And also thank you for all of your comments. I really enjoy hearing from you. The past month has been pretty eventful. And in fact, I really haven't had a whole lot of stitching time. And you're going to see that in comparison with the last video that I did. The reason for that is we had one of our nieces got married before Christmas, and I actually had some vacation time to burn. And so the last time I was work was the 19th of December, and then we spent a whole bunch of time up in Utah and Idaho with family. We had a really nice time. It was a wonderful wedding, and then we spent Christmas with my wife's family. We had a house full of people, and I mean really jam-packed full of people, and I knew that was the case and knew that there was just no way that I would have any opportunity to stitch. So I didn't even pack any stitching. And so I kind of got a little bit twitchy because I didn't have anything to stitch. But I did do some stuff, and I'll share that with you in a minute. We had a really good time. We had a wonderful Christmas with family. One of the things that we did, and I'll insert some pictures while I'm talking about this, is like, I don't remember if it was the 23rd, I think it was the 23rd of December. We went down to Temple Square to see the lights on Temple Square in downtown Salt Lake City. Temple Square is kind of in the middle of the city, and they really go all out with all of the lights. And we had lots of fun going down and seeing all of the lights. The temple is always pretty when it is lighted up at night like this. There were also a bunch of nativities that I didn't really take a bunch of pictures of, but they had a bunch of nativities. There is a reflecting pool that has a nativity in the middle of it that when we see it, that's really nice. That is in a plaza that's just to the east of Temple Square. And then they also have kind of a reenactment of the story in Luke 2. And there's a great big huge nativity over on I guess it's on the north side of Temple Square, just north of the tabernacle, and they basically play music and retell this story with a bunch of there's like a scene of the manger, a scene of the shepherds, and a scene of the wise men that are illuminated while the story is being told. There were a lot of people there just before Christmas, so my pictures of that are not really very good, but I'll show you what I have. And I really enjoyed. That was really one of the highlights of being in Salt Lake for Christmas. After Christmas, we went up to my family. My family lives in southeastern Idaho. They actually live about 15 or 20 miles away from town. I grew up on a cattle ranch, kind of in the middle of nowhere, 20 miles away from town, and the nearest neighbor is like 2 miles away. My parents live it's kind of in a valley with a creek that runs through the middle of it. And it is a very quiet and peaceful place. I just love it up there. And these pictures that I'm showing you are pictures of what that valley looks like, kind of from my parents' house looking up and down the valley to the north and the south, and also to the west. As you can see, there was snow there. When we got there in Utah, there wasn't any snow. And in fact, on Christmas Day, we had rain. And then the next day, the rain turned to snow. And I was a little bit nervous about driving, but our car handled it really well. We have a new car that I was a little bit, I didn't know how it was going to handle in the snow, but it did really well. So yeah, it got really cold, and we got all the snow that we wanted. And today is our first day back. We drove home yesterday, and it's kind of cold here. We're 50s, and it's kind of a dreary, cloudy day. It almost looks like we might get some rain here. So yeah, anyway, I know you guys up north, when you say 50 degrees and hear me say that's cold, you're probably laughing at me, but it does feel cold to me. So not cold enough that I have to bundle up like I would up in Utah, but it is chilly. Anyway, we had a wonderful time, like I said. So that's kind of an update of what's been going on. So let's talk a little bit about what I've been doing. As I mentioned, I didn't even take my stitching up. But I did take my knitting, because I figured knitting is a little bit more portable. I knew I would have room to pack it, and also I knew that I wouldn't take up as much space knitting. And I got quite a few squares from my Afghan stitched, and I could have done more, but I didn't pack enough of my yarn, and so I could have done more, but I ran out of yarn. So I'll show you a couple of the squares that I did. Let's see here. This is the first square. This is called Honeycomb. And basically this is slip stitch. So the background is garter stitch, so it's kind of springy. It's not a nice thick square. And basically the blue is basically garter stitch background in blue, and you slip the white. You'll see that there's a white row every once in a while, and you slip the white, and you kind of I don't know that you call it cable, but you also move the stitches around on your needle a little bit to give you this hexagonal effect. So there's that. Let me see, the next square that I did was this one. This is called Assorted Mock Cables. These are all done with twisted stitches, and they're actually all shaped, most of them are shaped from the back. So this middle is twisting 3 stitches together, which means basically you knit the third stitch from the needle, and then the third stitch from the end on the needle, the second stitch from the end on the needle, and then the first stitch on the needle, and then take everything off, and that twists the stitches. These twisted stitches on either side, they're shaped from the back, so they're purl twists instead of knit twists. And same with, I guess, these outside cables are shaped from the front, and these are shaped from the back. So it's kind of a different, but it makes a really nice effect, I think. And then I also did another cable square, if I can find it. Here it is. This is assorted, I can't remember what it's called, but these are more cables, and these are I think it was called variation cables, and these are all cables that are made differently. So you have ribbed cables on the end, so basically those are kind kind of twisted ribbing that is cabled. And then these in the middle, I can't remember what she calls these, but these are cabled differently from what you would consider a normal cable. Basically, you put all of the stitches in the cable on a double pointed needle or on a cable needle, and then you twist the needle and then stitch them off. So basically, instead of stitching the first stitches that you put on the needle, you stitch the last one. So it's first in, last out. If you're a computer scientist, you'll recognize that as a stack. Sorry. And then instead of being first in, first out. So that makes it looks very similar to a regular cable, except for it's different. So you'll see this comes up here, these stitches come up here and they come clear over to the other side instead of into the middle of the cable. And then this cable in the middle is called a Gordian knot. And basically you have these two knit columns that you cross across each other, but behind the background purl stitches. So that makes that's kind of an interesting effect as well. All these different cables and cabling these different ways, things get really, really tight. So that square is kind of a challenge. And then this is the last square that I knit before I ran out of space, and I still have a little bit of a few more rows to knit. And now that I am back where I have yarn, I can finish it. But this is called a vine leaf panel. So basically you have a stockinette stitch on the end, and then you have this panel of leaves coming out from a vine. I really like this. These leaves are really fun to stitch. Basically the way they work is you do a double increase in the middle halfway through the leaf, and then you decrease the stitches on the ends up to a point, and they're on a reverse stockinette background so that they really stand out. And this vine, it looks, you see how it moves back and forth. That is done by decreasing and increasing stitches on either side of the vine. So it's not cabled, it's just done by increases and decreases. So yeah, that's a really fun one. So that's what I've done, almost 4 squares. So it was a really productive time knitting wise. So I've got just a few more squares to do, and then I'm going to have to start worrying about joining them all together. So that was my knitting, and it was actually a pretty productive week. I have an interesting story. I was knitting one day, and my brother-in-law asked me, "Do you know how to crochet?" And I said, "Yes." And he said, "When I was 8, I crocheted an Afghan." And this is a guy who played football for BYU. And he evidently made an Afghan of granny squares. And it was kind of funny because it was almost a confession, and I don't think anybody had known that, but he felt safe to basically admit that to me. So I thought that was pretty cool. And so that was kind of fun. Now I'm going to share with you some of my graphs, and then we'll talk about everything that I've finished and everything that I'm working on. Basically everything I've worked on this year. So my first graph is my stitch trend for the last year, from January 2018 to December 2018. And you can see, you've seen this a lot of times. You'll see that in December this year, the number of days that I've stitched has fallen off, and that has made the number of stitches that I put in fall off as well. And as I said, that's because I spent 10 days in Utah without any time to stitch. So just to put that in perspective, here is my stitch trend for the on a yearly basis. So 2016, 2017, and 2018. And you can see that annually my stitching has also dropped. I did not stitch as many days this year as I did the year before. And of course, the number of stitches that I put in has also dropped. Yeah, lower than the past 2 years actually. And there's lots of reasons for that. They're basically the two big reasons, along with days when I didn't have time to stitch during the year, was our trip to Europe in the spring, and basically our trip to Utah for Christmas. And then I also had a trip to Utah in the summertime where I didn't really have a lot of time to stitch as well. So yeah, it's been kind of a year of not quite as much stitching, although it doesn't feel that way. So that's just kind of an interesting, that's kind of an interesting thing. So the number of, just to show you what I was able to accomplish, here's my graph of the number of starts that I did. And you'll see that I had 4 starts. And that was pretty good. They were, 3 of those 4 starts were small pieces that I actually finished. So I actually don't feel too bad about those starts because they're done. And then here's my finishes. I showed you this in my last video. I had 7 finishes, which is a record for me. And yeah, so I am really happy with the number of finishes that I've had, and I'm going to show you all of them just to kind of brag once more, I guess. Let's see here. If you combine the starts and finishes that I've had over the past year, you can see in this graph, this is the number of whips I've had during the year. I'm down to 4 whips, and I'm really happy about that. You can also see that the number of active whips is getting closer to the number of whips that I have. My goal is to kind of where I would like to get to is to have the number of active whips equal the number of actual whips that I have. So I'm looking forward to seeing these 2 lines kind of combine, well, kind of merge into one. Let's see here. Just a couple of other things. I'm going to show you my annual stitch Pareto. This is all of the projects that I worked on in 2018 and the number of stitches that I put into each project. So you can see, I think there's like 13 pieces that I worked on. The winner for the number of stitches is Let Freedom Ring, and that's mostly because there was a lot of empty space in Let Freedom Ring, and I worked on it for a lot of time. So that's why that's the winner. Everything else is just kind of in about the same level. There are a few that are down really low, and they're because either they're really small or I have a couple of pieces that I didn't work on as much as I would have liked to, and so they're also really small. This is the number of days that I worked on each of these projects, and this is kind of interesting. My big my big pieces that I finished are the ones that show up as having been worked on the most days. There are a few others like wood duck and green-winged teal that were small pieces, so I was able to finish them, but it didn't take me as many days, so the number of days are pretty small for those. You'll also see Autumn Magic is pretty high. My goal for 2019 is to get even more days than this on Autumn Magic, and we'll talk about that. I showed you these graphs my last video, but I'm going to show you again just because it's time for a celebration because my finishes are showing up here. So this is my cumulative project age. So this is the sum of the age of all of my projects. And you'll see Autumn Magic is like the biggest of my whips. I should say it's the oldest. It shows up as most prominently. What I really like about this graph is you can see that the cumulative age has dropped, and that's because of all of my finishes. And you can also see the number of days that I've worked on each project cumulatively. And you can see that has also dropped significantly because in December I had all of those finishes that I'll show you them again, but you would have seen them in my last video, and they're finally showing up in my graphs. So I love that. This is kind of another graph that I've created that I'll just show you just for fun. This is a 365-day rolling average of the number of stitches that I've put in, and you can see it has this kind of it takes a while for it to settle out when you get enough days that the line stabilizes. And then it's kind of interesting. You see that my average was really high and then it's dropped down. That's not because I haven't been stitching as much. It's because most of the projects that I have been working on lately are more full coverage or more full coverage-ish. And so they require a lot more time to stitch 100 to cover a 100 block, to cover a block in my design. So you'll see that my average is dropping, but that doesn't bother me. It just indicates that I'm doing more full coverage pieces. So that's all my graphs. I'm really happy with what they show me. I'm happy with what I've done in 2018. So, yeah. So let's get to it. I'm sure that you're just itching to see all of my progress again. So I'm going to go through review all of my finishes in chronological order from the beginning of the year. The first thing that I finished was Winter Sampler. This is a design by Kooler Design Studio by Sandy Orton from Kooler Design Studio. It is available as a PDF download from their website, and actually the Kooler Design Studio this month found my finish on Instagram and commented and said, "This is really a great piece. By the way, we have the other 3 samplers available for download on our website." I didn't say, yes, I already know, but that was kind of cool. Anyway, I stitched this on 28 count tea-dyed Monaco, and I spent most of the first couple of months of last year working on this piece, and that includes almost 3 weeks of back stitching to actually finish it. And this is what it looks like. There have been a couple of other people who have finished this year. It's been kind of fun to stitch it with them. So of course you have the skating scene up here, the clock counting down to midnight on New Year's Eve. There's like a Valentine thing, and I don't know why there are flowers in an ice skate. But then of course this is the Christmas corner down here with Santa and Christmas candy and gingerbread man and popcorn garlands, jingle bells over here. There's a ski scene here. There are a lot of things in here. And it was a lot of work to stitch, I will admit that. There's a lot of color changes and a lot of things like that in that. and of course a huge amount of back stitching, which I don't mind, and I really think that it really made the difference with this piece. So that's Winter Sampler. I'm starting to get the itch to start another one of these. I think I want to stitch all 4 of them. So I'm trying to figure out when I want to start. I think autumn will be the next one that I stitch. But there's Winter Sampler. And yeah, so that was my first finish. And that felt like a major accomplishment because at the time it was one of my oldest whips. The next finish that I had was a small piece, and it's one of my starts for the year. And this is one of my ducks. Now these are a series that were in the For the Love of Cross Stitch. I think it was the November 1994 and January 1995 issue that they are in. I will, if I am wrong, I'll put in a caption to tell you where they really were. At any rate, I stitched these on, I think it's 32 count. Wow, I can't remember what count it is, but I think it's 28 count light mocha Cashel linen. I'll have to look it up and make sure, and I'll put that down here as well in case it's something different. But this is my wood duck. These were designed, these are an adaptation of a painting by, I cannot remember who they are, but I'll put that down here as well. I'm going to get lots of captions today. But this is Donna Vermillion Giampa made the adaptation. And of course, I really like these. This is the wood duck. And of course they're of a decoy that's sitting on the shelf, and then there's like a cloth underneath it. Kind of a still life type thing. So the wood duck was my next finish. And then I also started and finished the last duck in the series, which is the green wing teal. And I'll show you that as well. So yeah, here he is. This is probably my favorite of the 4. I really like the color of the cloth underneath. Yeah, they're really cute. And I really want to get these framed because I think they'll look really good in my office. The next thing that I finished was my Midsummer Roses. This is a design by Paula Vaughan. It's actually a painting by Paula Vaughan, and the needlework adaptation was done by Jane Chandler. I stitched this on 32 count cream Belfast linen, which is the suggested fabric for the piece. And yeah, here's what it looks like all finished. I'm really happy with this piece too. This is another piece that had a lot of back stitching, and the back stitching made all the difference to get it finished. I finished this in the end of October. No, the beginning of October. So yeah, I really like this piece. Just looking at it now makes me remember how much I like it. The next finish that I had is over here. The next thing that I finished was my Spirit of Christmas, which is a design by Marilyn Levitt emblem of Lavender and Lace. And of course it's a Santa. This is the piece that I had framed, so I'm going to show you my framed piece. I stitched this on 32 count raw linen. And of course, I think this is my favorite of my finishes this year. Of course, it's Santa with a star. And I love the I love the garland that goes around him. You can see my light that I'm using. I guess I'll try to keep that out of the picture, but yeah, it is really, there we go. That's really good. Sorry for the glare. It's kind of hard to do this when you've got glass in here. And I had this framed. I am so happy with the way it looks framed. And like I say, this is my favorite of my finishes this year. Okay. Okay. That's 5 finishes. 2 more to go. Yeah, so my next finish is Let Freedom Ring by Lila's Studio, which I stitched on 32 count Belfast linen using the called for colors. And of course, this is a well-known piece. It is Independence Hall in Philadelphia, surrounded by motifs. And I am also really happy with this one. So yeah, there's Let Freedom Ring. This was finished in November, the very end of November. Okay, and one more finish. This is a piece that I finished at the beginning of this month, and I started it in October. This is a stitch along. It's a design by Eric Shipley called Merry and Bright, and it is stitched on, this is 32 count All Souls Night, stitched with Eric's thread. Eric Shipley owns Ship's Manor is the name of his design company. And I really like this one too. I really like the colors and the way they pop from the color of the fabric. So, and it's basically a sampler with a bunch of motifs that cascade down through here. I really like the design. And also, as I mentioned before, the lighter shades of the colors are in the middle and the darker shades are around the outside. So yeah, that is the 7th and final finish. Wow. I guess I've been a lot more, it doesn't feel like I've accomplished that much this year. But it feels really good to have all of those finishes. So that leaves me with 4 pieces that I am still working on, and I'm just going to show those for completeness so that you can see where they are, and hope that I am hoping that I can finish at least 3 of them. There's one that I don't really have a lot of confidence that I'm going to be able to finish them in 2019. The other 3 I think I've got a good chance of finishing. The one that I think is still gonna take me a while is Autumn Magic. Of course, this is a design by Randal Spangler, and it's a conversion by Heaven and Earth Designs. I'll insert a picture of what it will look like. It will be a house in an autumn setting, and I've had pretty good success this year with this. A little bit of regret, and I'll talk about that. But this is what it looks like now. This I do not know. I don't remember. I think this is a little bit different from. Yeah. I think yeah. So this last month I was able to stitch the rest of this diagonal. I've hit the corner of the page and I'm working down, and it's looking really good now. I mean, you're starting to see this tree here, and more of the house is starting to show up. I guess it's the front porch. My regret with this piece is last year I got really frustrated with it, and I didn't work on it for 6 months. And if I had worked on it for those 6 months, I would have a lot more accomplished. So I am hoping that I get a lot more accomplished this year, because I don't intend on giving up on it like I did last year. So that's that. The next piece, I'm stitching this on 25 count off-white Lugana. I'm stitching it over 1, and I have a long ways to go, although when I get finished this page down here, I will be more than halfway across the bottom, which is another milestone. So I am hoping, and I think that I can at least do, finish this page. Yeah, you see, this is the top of this page, so finish this page, stitch this page, and then I would love to get another diagonal series of pages done in 2019. My next whip is Quaker Christmas II, and I really don't have a good picture of what this will look like when it's finished. But it is a bunch of Quaker motifs that suggest Christmas songs, and it's really fun. It's been really fun to work on. I've been working on it the rest of this month, and I've accomplished quite a bit. So I'll insert a picture of what it looked like the last time you saw it. And this is what it looks like now. So I haven't worked on this since June, I think. So it felt really good to pull it out and finish it and work on it. And I actually stitched all of this. I've stitched all of this through here. So it looked like I had a great big hole here. I've basically filled in the hole. I've stitched this plant over here. I got more of Hark the Herald, and then there's these motifs. It's kind of interesting. There's a bunch of motifs with this star in it, like this one and this one. This one, they all have the same star in the middle of them. And then there's the baby in the manger, this kind of snowflakey design, and then this reindeer. And then I've started working on this. This was the piece that I was working on just before we went to Utah. And I felt like it had got shortchanged a couple of days. And so I'm going to work on it for another week, just because I want to get more done. And if you're planning on stitching this, I'm just going to give you a warning, because there is a mistake in here that I am not going to take care of. I started down here on this motif, and as you can see, I stitched this motif so that it is symmetrical. But it's not charted symmetrical. This line over here is 1 stitch over, so it's 1 stitch longer than this line over here, and it's 1 stitch closer to the flowers. That's the way it's charted. And I just assumed that it was symmetrical. And what that has done is that has made it so that the bottom of my piece is 1 stitch wider than the actual design is. I think when she designed this, she just fudged that here so that it would fit. And what that has done is I was stitching over in here, and I all of a sudden realized that I think this, with regards to this, to all of this, so my line kind of goes up through here. There's an extra space, 1 stitch space from here all the way up because of the way that I stitched it. And I mean, you can't tell, so it doesn't bother me. But what it means is I have to be careful that I line up this edge here and this edge here, and I have to decide where I'm going to add the stitch all the way up. And I'm hoping, I haven't looked at it, but I'm hoping that when I get to the top that it won't look bad. So anyway, and I guess it's good that I added a stitch. Well, if I had accidentally stitched one less, I think it would have shown up a lot quicker because I would have run into something. But it took me like 15-20 minutes to figure out what I had done wrong to make it so that this was over further than this. So if you start down here, if you're planning on stitching this piece and you're stitching down in this corner, be careful and realize that this motif is not symmetrical. Other than that, well, and that's like I say, it doesn't bother me. I just know that I have to be careful to make everything look right. But I really like this. It's been really fun to stitch. I don't know what it is about Quakers, but I really enjoy stitching them. I like the symmetry. You know, I like the symmetry, and especially the ones that are symmetrical in a circle. It's kind of fun. So this is what I'm working on right now, and I am going to continue working on it for another week. Okay, 2 more whips, and these I kind of feel guilty about because I haven't worked on them for a very long time. But that's going to change. The first one is Teresa Winsler's English Garden Sampler. I'm stitching this on 25 count. You know what? I'll put in the notes what I'm stitching, the fabric that I'm stitching Quaker Christmas II on, because I've forgotten. Okay, this is stitched in 25 count antique white Lugana, using Sullivan's floss. I just blanked out a little bit. Sullivan's floss. So this is not DMC, it's Sullivan's, which I don't think I will do again. I think the shading is just a little bit different from DMC, and I like the DMC shades better. But yeah, I've got this whole scene to finish, and I'm actually really close to hitting this corner up here. This piece is a lot of work because the color changes in here are even more intense than I think than my Autumn Magic is actually. And so that's kind of given me a block with this one. It's one of those things where once I start stitching, I enjoy it, but just getting over the hump to start stitching it is kind of hard. But this is going to be a piece that I concentrate on this year. I actually think I can finish it because there's this scene, and then there's like a scene of a hedge down here, and then of course the letters and a little bit of, and then there's not really as much left as it looks like because there's a lot of empty space and a lot of specialty stitches. So yeah, I want to get this done because I have other Teresa Winsler designs that I want to do, and I want to get to them. So I want to finish this so that I feel like I can start something else. So I'm looking forward to working on this year. And this other piece that I feel guilty about, this is the Modern Folk Embroidery. This is the Modern Folk Embroidery Quaker Seasons, 4 seasons of Quaker, 4 seasons primitive Quaker year or something like that. And I feel guilty about this one because it has been neglected as well. This is all I've got done. So this is mostly just the first part, January, and the second part. All of the parts have been released, and I look forward to working on this very much. I'm stitching this. This is 35 count. This is what I get for, not, I've forgotten. I'll put in the notes what fabric this is. I know it's 35 count, and I know it's R&R. But I can't remember the name of the color. So I'll put that in the notes or in a caption as well. And this is Silks for You Floss. I'll put the color number in the captions also. I really enjoyed stitching this, and I just ended up prioritizing pieces that were closer to getting finished so I could finish them. And now I'm at a point where I can really concentrate on this. So I am really looking forward to working on this more this year, and you'll see more of it as I work on finishing it. So that's all my whips. Yeah, so that's really cool. I've really enjoyed. I'm really looking forward to this year. I am looking forward to stitching those 4 pieces, and I also am looking forward to starting a few other things. I do not know specifically what I'm going to start, and part of the reason for that is I sit down and I make a list of what I want to start this year, and my list grows and grows until it's bigger than any way that I know that I'll be able to stitch everything. So it's just kind of going to be ad hoc. I do know, one thing that I do know, and when I did my giveaway, I had a lot of people who said that they would love to do a stitch along with the drawn thread seasonal gardens. I had a ton of people who expressed interest in that pattern. I wish that I could have given that pattern to everybody, but I also had people say, give us enough notice so that when you start that we can start it with you. So right now, my plans are, I think, I still don't really have a good feel for how long it's going to take me to get to a finish. I don't want to start those. I don't want to do another start until I get another finish. But right now I am planning on starting those drawn thread gardens in the summer, maybe June. So if you want to stitch those gardens with me, let's plan on June. Yeah, we'll plan on June, and I think even if I haven't had it finished by then, I will be close enough that I will feel comfortable starting that. So let's say June, we're going to start the Drawn Thread Gardens. We're going to do a stitch along. I will probably do a hashtag on Instagram, and we'll do it that way. Yeah, and I would just say choose, I plan on stitching all 4. I think they are small enough that they won't take a whole lot of time. I mean, there's a house in the middle that will probably take the bulk of time. I think the plants on either side, I don't think they'll take very much. So I feel confident that I will be able to start those and finish them relatively quickly. And I don't know what season I'm going to start, but we'll just say we're going to stitch any of the 4 if you want to stitch them with me. I'm looking forward to doing that. So let's plan on that, June. I also think, I don't know what else I'm going to start. I really want to start the 101 Alphabets Rosewood Manor piece, but I don't even have fabric for that one yet. So I've got to decide what fabric I'm going to use for that. And then I have a couple of other things that I really want to start, but it kind of depends on how this goes. Of course, there's always the possibility that I'll get bored with these 4 pieces and decide that I need to start something else. We'll kind of see. We'll kind of see what's going on. So I know those are really rough plans, but that's kind of what I'm planning right now. I'll just take 1 month at a time and see how I go. But I really want to get at least one more finished before I start something else. Another thing that I was going to mention with my knitting that I forgot is I've said several times that knitting is kind of taken a back seat. One of the reasons why is it's too hot to wear anything that I knit here. I can only wear sweaters when I go up to Utah in the winter. And also, I have always found, I kind of think knitting's a little bit boring. Sorry, I just said that. And that means it's just the same thing over and over again. You knit the same rows over and over again, and I get bored with that. But I found an app that has kind of changed that. It's a counter app that's on that I've loaded onto my phone. I think there are several of them, but this one kind of tracks the number of stitches that I've made, and I can see my rows progress, and it's kind of made it fun to watch that progress as I knit, and that really made knitting those squares while I was in Utah really fun. So I don't know. I think maybe I'm going to try to make a big push to finish all of my squares for that Afghan and start joining them together. So that's kind of something else that's kind of going as well. At any rate, I hope that you have a great month. We have a full house again. My son and daughter that are going to school in Utah decided they wanted to come here to warm up a little bit. They don't start school till next week, and so they're here. So we have a full house again, which is really nice. Yeah, I can't imagine that they're really warming up down here because, like I say, it's kind of chilly here right now. But it's good to have them home for a week, and we're really enjoying their company. Anyway, I hope that you have a great January and a great 2018. I am looking forward to stitching with you and sharing my progress with you and hearing from you as well. At any rate, I am going to leave you now. As always, if you haven't, feel free to subscribe to my channel. And I always enjoy it when you like and comment on my videos. I hope that you have a very happy new year, and we will talk to you later. Goodbye.